3,500 cattle are dying. Please, for God's sake, I'll do anything. That's what Margaret Wellington sobbed into the phone at 5 in the morning. But you know what? I just sat there at my kitchen table, sipping hot coffee beside my brand new well, feeling absolutely nothing. Not even a flicker. Because when the HOA tried to ban me from digging on my own ranch, they made a mistake they'd never recover from. They picked a fight with the wrong farmer. They tried to break the backbone of the one guy who quietly owned the fate of half this county and never needed to brag about it. And now, with a single number scribbled on a legal form, I held the whole rotten empire in the palm of my hand. Want to know how I pulled that off? You ever hear about water wars in Texas? Well, sit back, because what started as a neighborly favor turned into an all-out war that changed everything. I've lived on my 50 acres for nearly 40 years. There's not much to look at, maybe, but that land runs in my blood. My grandfather bought it back in '52, and with it came something everyone else ignored back then. The eastern shore of Crystal Lake. About 20% of the whole thing. But the old man, he was clever, not just buying the dirt but securing every scrap of mineral and water rights. Water is life, Henry, he'd say. And one day, folks'll wake up to that. Turns out, the old man was a prophet. Fast forward to when I inherited the place. I also inherited a deal I'd made 20 years ago with Margaret Wellington. Back then, Margaret ran maybe 500 head of cattle. She needed water. I had it. We shook hands on a rental price that even then was a favor. Hell, I just wanted to be a good neighbor. Margaret's empire ballooned over the years. 500 cattle became 3,500, then the biggest dairy operation for 3 counties. She bought up land, put in mile-long irrigation systems, turned her little patch into an industrial farm, and all along, she paid me peanuts for the right to draw from my slice of the lake. I never complained, never raised the rate. I thought that was what community was about. My first mistake, apparently. This year, the worst drought in half a century. TV meteorologists yammering about La Nina, climate change, maps lit up in angry red and orange. My own crops were withering. The lake started dropping, inch by inch, day by day. That's when I decided I had to act. I dig my own well, tapped the aquifer below, called in a crew, and by noon that Tuesday, the HOA president, Victoria Sterling, was at my gate in her Sunday best, waving a cease and desist like it was the Magna Carta. "You can't dig that well, Henry," she sniffed, all pearls and pressed pantsuit, acting like my sweat-stained jeans made her itch. "It violates HOA regulations. It'll affect property values." I stared her down. "Victoria, I've been here longer than your little organizations existed. This is my land." She just smiled that tight, superior smile. "The HOA has jurisdiction over all properties, including yours. Board voted unanimously. No new wells. Yours is denied." She had the gall to sound smug. That's when Margaret's Ford pulled up, her stepping out like some cattle queen, boots shining, Stetson perched just right. "Henry, we need to talk about this well," she barked like she owned the place. "My herd needs water every single day. Your little vanity project is a threat to all of us." I felt my jaw clench. Vanity project? Margaret, you rent your water rights from me? Or did you forget? She laughed. "Oh, that old deal? Please. I run the largest operation in this county. I employ 50 people, I pay you peanuts. I matter. You don't." That's the moment it clicked. I'd kept her empire running for 20 years, and she treated me like some hired hand. Victoria stepped in, threatening me with $50,000 in fines and legal action. "You think you know the law?" She smirked. "Margaret's on the water board. My nephew's the county attorney." They turned to leave, both acting like the game was over. I called after Margaret, just loud enough for them to hear. "You might want to double-check whose lake you've been using." She stared back, confused, but I was already heading inside, plans spinning through my head. That night, I dug into my old filing cabinet. My grandfather's original papers, every deed and survey since '52. Turns out, not only did I have every right to my share of Crystal Lake, but I had exclusive water access, riparian rights, the works. Margaret only had rights because of my kindness, nothing more. She'd spent 20 years calling me small time. She was about to learn what a nobody could do. The next day was the HOA meeting. I dressed nice, clean jeans, Sunday shirt, carried a briefcase full of documents. Victoria was already at the podium, acting like Queen of England. Margaret sat up front, surrounded by managers and $1,000, and our lawyer. Victoria announced my violations, said the board was ready to take legal action. I stood up, boots echoing in the silence. Before you start, let's establish some facts. I laid out the deed, the water rights, the rental contract. This land, this lake, my family's since 1952. Margaret's only been drawing water because I let her. She's been paying $200 a month for water she's reselling at $500 a truckload to Peterson Ranch and others. And she's been sneaking out at night, filling tankers, stealing what isn't hers. The room exploded. Farmers shouting, Margaret turning white, Victoria fumbling with her phone. Margaret's lawyer tried to spin it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The final blow? As of midnight, Margaret's water rights are revoked. You want water, you pay real rates, or you get nothing. Margaret lost it, threatening lawsuits, screaming about her cattle dying. Victoria threatened me with more fines. I just stood there. Consult your nephew, I told her. Ask him about the 1948 grandfather clause. Your HOA's rules don't mean squat here. That's when the tide turned. Farmers who'd always gone along with Margaret started seeing her for what she was. A bully who'd stolen from all of us. And me? The nobody suddenly mattered more than anyone in the room. The fallout was instant. Margaret's empire began to collapse. City water cut her off. Banks denied emergency loans. The word spread faster than wildfire. Her cattle, 3,500 head, started dying of thirst. She tried to buy water from everyone and their uncle. Nolak. Her connections dried up as fast as the lake she'd abused. 3 days in, the suffering was visible for miles. Cattle crowding around dry troughs, workers quitting, buyers pulling out. Margaret tried every trick in the book, threatening, begging, even offering 10 times what she used to pay. I'll pay anything, Henry, she sobbed over the phone, her voice shredded from crying. Please, don't let them die. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about consequences. Sell the herd, I said flatly. Start over, do it right. She couldn't. Nobody wanted her cattle, not after word got out. She'd built a house of cards, and now everyone could see the cracks. Even her workers started calling, begging for mercy. Jake, her manager, pleaded for the animal's sake. And I admit it got to me, but I held my line. Actions have consequences, I said. I can't reward theft and disrespect. By the end of the week, the news stations rolled in. Drone footage of dying cattle, Margaret's tear-stained face broadcast to half the state. Some folks blamed me, but most saw the truth. This was about greed, arrogance, and the kind of power you only have until someone stands up to you. A few days later, I called a meeting at the community center. Victoria had resigned in disgrace. The new HOA president let me present everything. Photos, contracts, receipts, even audio of Margaret plotting to buy my land for pennies. I offered the community a deal. Join a new water cooperative. Fair rates, open books, no monopolies. 23 farms signed up that very day. Margaret, meanwhile, was indicted for theft and fraud, facing prison and millions in fines. Her cattle were sold off, except for the sickest, who nobody would touch. 3 weeks after all this started, Margaret showed up at my gate. Gone was the queen, replaced by a broken woman in faded jeans. Please, Henry, she begged. Just enough water to keep them alive. I'll do anything. I looked her in the eye. Margaret, I've already arranged for the Humane Society to take the last cattle. The bills go to your bankruptcy court. I didn't do it for you. I did it for them. Learn from this. Respect and sustainability matter more than anything else. She asked if I'd ever forgive her. I just shook my head. That's between you and your conscience. But water from my well? Never. Forever means forever. So that's the story. Margaret went from cattle queen to cautionary tale. I went from small-time nobody to the guy who changed everything. The lake, the land, the well, those belong to folks who show respect. And sometimes the smallest farmer gives the biggest lesson. Never mess with the man who controls what you need to survive. Now, tell me, was I too harsh, or did Margaret have it coming? Drop your take in the comments, smash that like button, and tell me your wildest HOA story. Revenge served, or mercy owed, what would you have done?